Today, we're going to explore what it means to truly trust God. Life is full of incredibly difficult circumstances, and in the midst of disappointments and pain, it can be hard to trust that He is good and loving. But thankfully, God promises us that we can trust His heart even when we can't see His hand. Let's look today at what it means to trust God in the midst of our circumstances. Welcome to the First 15 podcast. Our scripture for today comes from Jeremiah 29, verse 11. Scripture says, "I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." As we focus on practical ways to begin our year with God, let's pause today to ask an honest question. Why should we want to trust our year and our lives to Him? There's no avoiding the fact that our world is a broken place. And for many of us, the tragedies and disappointments that we face can cause us to question whether or not God is truly good. That questioning is only natural, since Christians believe in an all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful God. Because of that, He knows all about our problems, loves us enough to help us with them, and is powerful enough to do so. And yet, you and I still live in this fallen, broken world. If you're like me, God has not answered all your prayers in the way you wanted. Phil Yancey's book, Disappointment with God, was a bestseller because it spoke of what many of us have sometimes felt: disappointed. Where has God disappointed you? The first audience of today's scripture shared our struggle. They were exiles in Babylon, living as slaves to an enemy that had stolen them from their homes and destroyed their temple. And yet, in the midst of their suffering, their Lord promised them that He had plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. He fulfilled those plans when He raised up the Persian Empire to destroy the Babylonian Empire and return His people to their promised land. There they would rebuild their temple and reestablish their nation. 5 centuries later, their Messiah would teach in that same temple and lay down His life for their sins and ours. But how does the Bible connect God's plans for welfare with the evil and suffering we experience? Here are some approaches. Many of our problems result from our misused freedom, not God's intention. The Lord uses suffering to grow us spiritually. We will understand more in the future than we can in the present. And God walks with us through our hardest days. Whichever approach is most relevant for you today, here's the reality. The harder it is to trust God, the more we need to trust Him. On our most painful days, when we are most tempted to turn from Him, we most need His help. The sicker the patient, the more urgent the physician. So what are your greatest challenges today? What fears or worries are burdening your heart? Spend some time naming them, and then trust them to your Lord. Remember that no matter your circumstances and challenges, He wants an abundant, joy-filled, transformed life for you. In his book, The Promised Land, the Scottish minister John Macduff made this profound statement: "When you can't trace God's hand, trust His heart." Let us do the same. As we begin our time of guided prayer, identify a way you are disappointed with God today. Be specific and honest. Psalm 10 verse 1 says, "Why, O Lord, do you stand far away? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble?" And next, ask Him for the faith to trust Him with your problem. When we lack faith, we can pray for God to give us faith. Mark 9:24 says, "I believe, help my unbelief." And last, trust your challenges and your day to your Father's providential plan and love. Psalm 37 verses 4 through 6 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in Him, and He will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday." Henry Nouwen made popular the concept of the wounded healer, the person who helps others with the same struggles they have experienced personally. As you trust God with your hard places this year, look for ways to serve others facing similar challenges. Remember these words from 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4. "God comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. How can you share the comfort you have received today? Thanks for listening to the First 15 podcast. I'm your host, Josh Miller. As you go about your day today, spend time in prayer about the things that disappoint you. Ask God to give you eyes to see your circumstances through His eyes, so that you might be able to see things from His perspective. Seeing your troubles from a higher perspective can give you the ability to begin to replace disappointment with gratitude. You will begin to see the garden of your heart flourish as you go. If today's episode was meaningful for you, we'd love to hear about it. Go ahead and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, or you can reach out to us at podcast@first15.org. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and may God bless you as you seek Him.